Stillmatic is the fifth studio album by American rapper Nas, released December 18, 2001 on Columbia Records in the United States. In contrast to his previous work's gangsta rap themes, it contains socially conscious and philosophical themes similar to those of his debut album, Illmatic. Nas' lyrics address topics such as ghetto life, U.S. domestic and foreign policies, and his feud with rapper Jay-Z. Stillmatic served as a commercial and critical success that helped re-establish Nas' career, following a period of critical disappointment with the releases of I Am and Nastradamus. It debuted at number 8 on the U.S. Billboard 200 chart with sales of 342,600, eventually peaking at number 5 and selling over 2,026,000 copies in the United States. Upon its release, Stillmatic received generally positive reviews from most music critics. Background: though he had gained critical acclaim with his classic debut album Illmatic in 1994, Nas' image had been quickly deteriorating in the hip-hop community with his change of theme, from the philosophical topics of Illmatic to the gangster rap and commercialized sound that became the focus of his later albums. While his second album, It Was Written, received fairly positive reviews and introduced him to a greater audience, the follow-ups I Am and Nastradamus were considered mediocre in comparison by critics. Some criticized his inability to continue his critical success, with Jay-Z rapping in Takeover that he had a one-hot album every 10-year average. The release of Stillmatic was an attempt by Nas to re-establish his credibility in the hip-hop community, with the title signifying his intentions to continue where Illmatic left off. Feud with Jay-Z. Jay-Z had previously dissed Nas in his single Takeover, taken from his September 2001 release, The Blueprint. On Stillmatic, Nas retaliated with the anticipated song, Ether, a response to Takeover, which insinuated that Jay-Z had stolen lyrics from the Notorious B.I.G. several times, that he had sold out, and that he was a misogynist, among other things. Several hip-hop aficionados believe Nas won the feud based on this track, which many felt was much more vicious and ruthless than Takeover, although this is still a subject of debate within hip-hop circles. Jay-Z would respond with the radio freestyle Super Ugly. Singles: the first single from Stillmatic was Rule featuring R&B singer Amori. It was not heavily promoted but still managed to reach number 67 on the Hot R&B Hip-Hop Singles and Tracks chart. It did not receive a video and was issued on compact disc, so many are unaware that it was a single. Got Herself A was believed to have been the first single from Stillmatic. Got Herself A, produced by Megahertz, contains a sample from the theme song on the HBO drama The Sopranos. The third single was One Mic, which received acclaim for its content and video. Reception, commercial performance. The album was released on December 18, 2001 and was certified platinum by Recording Industry Association of America on January 16, 2002. By July 2008, the album sold over 2,026,000 copies in the United States. Critical response: Stillmatic received generally positive reviews from music critics. At Metacritic, which assigns a normalized rating out of 100 to reviews from mainstream critics, the album received an average score of 69, based on 12 reviews. Despite finding its production half-realized, Alex Needham of NME wrote that lyrically, Nas is pretty much back on form. Blender Eurosha Alex Papadamas described the album as a surprising return to form, and stated even if ETA unregistered trademark SA fluke, Stillmatic still feels like a renaissance. Steve Jones of USA Today gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars and stated, diss songs aside, Nas' strength has always been his incisive lyrical analyses of current events. In his review for The Village Voice, Selwyn Seyfu Hines wrote Stillmatic isn't merely a reunion or rehash of Illmatic themes. The Nas on this record has grown, with the emotional expansion such maturation suggests. For one, he has never before drawn upon his anger, with a burning focus and controlled intensity that underscores nearly every song. Some of it can surely be ascribed to the Jay-Z battle, but more seems due to the deeper, internal struggle Nas has waged against the fallout from his early, precocious success. In contrast, Rolling Stone magazine gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars, and stated striving to maintain street cred while reaching for pop success has left Nas vacillating clumsily on past projects, and this record is riddled with similar inconsistencies. One moment he casts himself as a gritty cat who feels most at home on a project bench, calling out neighborhood snakes, and ducking gunshots. The next, he's delivering dumbed-down verses over the Trackmaster's rinky-dink rendition of Tears for Fears. John Bush from Illmatic wrote dropping many of the mainstream hooks and featured performers in order to focus his rapping. Nas proves he's still a world-class rhymer, but he does sound out of touch in the process of defending his honor. Despite the many highlights, a few of the tracks just end up weighing him down. Brett Berliner from Stylus magazine remarked Stillmatic features the best rhymes from Nas since his debut, and possibly the best rhymes of the year, rivaled maybe only by Ghostface Killah. He however was unfavorable of the album's guests, and some of its production, and went on to comment Stillmatic was billed as a recreation of Illmatic, where the only rhyming guest was the underrated AZ. However, 5 other guest rappers appear on the album, including NASA Unregistered Trademark Crew, the Bravehearts, and the Mundane Millennium Thug. The guest rappers only detract from the album, and the guest singers that appear don't Unregistered Trademark T add a whole lot either. Despite a mixed response from most mainstream music publications, Stillmatic achieved a fair amount of acclaim from within the hip-hop community, who viewed it as a comeback album. The Source magazine gave it 5 mix, a rating they reserve only for classic hip-hop albums. Hip Hop DX also gave it a maximum 5 rating, and wrote easily one of the best albums of the year. Stillmatic runs the gamut of street poetry to storytelling and bravado. This CD is filled with instant classics. Although panning several of the album's songs, Steve John from Rap Reviews gave it a 9 out of 10 rating and concluded while no album may ever top his debut's brilliance, this one comes close enough to make even his most passionate haters happy to hear the raw essence of hip-hop revealed in all its true glory. Giving Stillmatic a 3.5 out of 5 rating, Elizabeth Mendes-Berry of Vibe was less favorable, calling it infuriatingly inconsistent, but she went on to extol it as an exercise in lyrical courage and musical might. In the new Rolling Stone album guide, Rolling Stone journalist Chris Ryan gave the album 3 stars and called it a return to form. Ryan wrote that it finds Nas sticking with what works, creative story raps and trenchant social commentary. He still errs when he makes attempts at club tracks, but the album is largely a success. In 2005, Chris Rock compiled a list of his top 25 hip-hop albums of all time, to which he ranked Stillmatic at number 20, commenting it's like Mama Said Knock You Out 11 years earlier, where a guy just reclaimed his spot with some great records. Track listing notes: the track Braveheart Party was removed from later pressings of Stillmatic at Mary J. Blige's request. The Japanese release of Stillmatic features 3 additional tracks, No Ideas Original, Everybody's Crazy, and Black Zombies. Each can also be found on the Lost Tapes, a compilation album that was released in 2002. A limited edition version of Stillmatic contains a bonus disc with snippets from 5 songs on the Lost Tapes. Samples: Stillmatic contains a sample from Let Me Be Your Angel by Stacey Lattisaw, Ether contains dialogue from Fuck Free Ends by Tupac, and gunshot samples from Knuckleheads by Raekwon and Who Shot Ya by the Notorious B.I.G. Got Herself A contains a sample from Woke Up This Morning by Alabama 3, Your Darn Man contains a sample from Sugar Man by Sixto Diaz Rodriguez, Am Fenster by the German band City, Theme from Exodus by Pat Boone and Ernest Gold, Rewind contains a sample from It's Yours by T. La Rock, Monkey Island by the Jagles Band, I'm Not Rough by the Jagles Band, One Mic contains a sample from In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins, I'm Gonna Love You Just a Little More Baby by Barry White, Second Childhood contains a sample from Born to Love by Peabo Bryson and Roberta Flack, Da Bridge 2001 by Nas and Illwell Records presents QB's Finest, NY State of Mind. .2 by Nas, Destroy and Rebuild contains an interpolation from The Bridge Is Over by Boogie Down Productions, The Flyest contains a sample from Night Moves by Frank McDonald and Chris Ray, Child of Tomorrow by Badder Than Evil. Rule contains an interpolation from Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. Every Ghetto contains a sample from main title by John Williams. Personnel, credits for Stillmatic adapted from Allmusic. Charts, album, singles, notes. References, bracket, Nathan Horde, Christian, eds. The New Rolling Stone Album Guide, completely revised and updated 4th edition. Simon & Schuster. ISBN A0-7432-0169-8. External links, Stillmatic at Discogs, Stillmatic at Metacritic, background on 5 mic rating straight from the source.